this was curious because the serial number was also obliterated. And is this even functional was part of the question that we were asking. The letter stated, among other things, this was an assassination attempt on Trump, but I'm so sorry I failed you. And did he intend to fail? Was this a contingency letter? But what he did do is he fought and chased a suspected rapist and later assisted police with their investigation, making him a super citizen, if not a superhero. Trump's second assassin, Ryan Routh, is not going anywhere. The order of detention has now been dropped from the judge out of the Southern District of Florida. And what we'll see inside is a nice explanation of what the judge thinks is the basis for keeping him in custody, talking about the weight of the evidence, the circumstances of the offense, his prior criminal record, and more. And so let's zoom in on it. You can see this is Ryan Wesley Routh, the second Trump assassin out of Florida. Government wants him in custody. We read through the detention filing, and we see here that the judge is finding that by clear and convincing evidence, no condition or combinations of conditions of release, so no ankle monitors, no home detention, nothing, are reasonably going to assure the safety of the community or people. And no other release condition will make him come back to court. Now, here is what the judge found. The weight of the evidence against the defendant is strong, subject to a lengthy period of incarceration if he's convicted. He's got prior criminal records, he's got a history of violence and use of weapons, and he has a lack of significant community ties to this district because he's from North Carolina. Here's what the judge found. They say Ryan Routh, Trump's assassin, is charged by a criminal complaint with possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, illegal, and the gun had an obliterated serial number, which we looked at yesterday, and we were also asking questions about the tape and trying to identify the tape. And when we were here yesterday, we were looking for a small piece of tape, right? A single piece of tape somewhere affixed to the gun, like a marker or something. But after the show on Locals, it was pointed out to us that we had a huge, just rolls of tape wrapped around the scope, attaching it to the rifle because apparently it's not even mounted appropriately. And that looks like tape, that looks like tape, that looks like tape. So it's not a single piece of tape. It's like a roll of electrical tape that was mounting the gun there. And then the thesis was that there was a single fingerprint under the tape. And so it was just bad phrasing in the detention order based on what we saw. Now, this is also theoretically some sort of tape around the rifle, but this was curious because the serial number was also obliterated. And is this even functional was part of the question that we were asking, right? Does this give you functional sighting when you've got a scope that's duct taped or electrical taped onto the top of the weapon? But here, if convicted of a charge on this, the defendant faces a maximum of 5 years in prison. Now, additionally, the government has proffered evidence concerning the offense of attempted assassination and assault on a major presidential candidate. Okay, so those have not been charged yet, but you can expect those to come later, the judge says. Even though the government has not charged that yet, it seems pretty serious. And so those might be coming, and so we cannot release him on that basis. Now, the weight of the evidence against this Routh is strong. The following evidence was established by the criminal complaint and the affidavit supporting the complaint by the feds, the government's written and oral proffer, and exhibits admitted without objection, and testimony of an FBI special agent. They tell us on September 15, former President Trump was golfing at International Golf Club, Trump Hotel, Trump International. At approximately 1:30 p.m., Trump was on the 5th hole advancing towards the 6th hole when a Secret Service agent conducted a proactive protective security sweep of the exterior fence line along the 6th hole. While conducting the sweep, the agent spotted a partially obscured face of a man in the exterior brush along the fence line near the 6th hole putting green. The agent also observed the barrel of a rifle protruding from the fence aimed directly at him. Agent fired his weapon several times towards the rifle, then announced over his radio that shots had been fired. Shortly after the agent fired his weapon, a civilian driving on Summit Boulevard observed a man run across the road away from Trump International, get into a Nissan Xterra, flee the area at a high rate of speed. Witness made eye contact with the man before he fled. Witness took photographs of the Nissan Xterra, wrote down all but the last digit of the license plate number, immediately reported these observations to law enforcement. At 2:15, Martin County stopped a Nissan Xterra traveling northbound I-95, matching the license plate description reported by the witness. Law enforcement transported the witness from the Martin County location, positively identified the defendant. The witness positively ID'd him as the same guy. So you've got one witness, you've got a latent fingerprint on the interior of the tape probably, and we've got a search of the Nissan Xterra. We've got 6 cell phones, 2 additional license plates, passport, handwritten list of dates and venues in August, September, October of 2024, where Trump had appeared or was expected to appear. And furthermore, one of the cell phones contained a Google search of how to have traveled from Palm Beach to Mexico. Law enforcement also searched the exterior fence line in the area where the agent had seen the rifle. Law enforcement found, recovered, and among other items, got an SKS semi-automatic 7.62 caliber rifle. It was loaded with a total of 11 rounds and one in the chamber. The serial number on the rifle was obliterated. Based on the make model, law enforcement believes the rifle had traveled in interstate commerce. Additionally, a scope was attached to the rifle with electrical tape. Upon examining the rifle for fingerprints, law enforcement found a fingerprint on the electrical tape that made a preliminary match to the defendant. Okay, that's a much better description from the judge than the useless prosecutors. Now, following news coverage of the defendant's arrest, another civilian witness contacted law enforcement to report that defendant had dropped off a box at the witness's residence several months prior. The box contained, among other things, ammunition, 4 phones, various handwritten letters, including one addressed to the world. The letter stated, among other things, "This was an assassination attempt on Trump, but I'm so sorry I failed you." And did he intend to fail? Was this a contingency letter? Did he have a letter in case of success? And where is that letter? The letter offered $150K to anyone who could complete the job. Now, the court takes judicial notice of the pretrial services report, which is sort of an independent agency that does their own interview with him and what they are able to investigate about his background. They say he's got a lengthy criminal history with over 100 arrests, including convictions for multiple weapons charges and conviction for possession of a weapon of mass destruction. The pretrial services report also shows that he recently traveled to Ukraine multiple times and to Taiwan. So he's a flight risk, he's a repeat offender, multiple weapons charges, can't let him out. Based on the evidence, the court finds there are no conditions or combinations of conditions that would reasonably assure the safety of the community. Numerous factors involved here: current charges, the nature of additional charges that might come, the weight of the evidence, his prior criminal history, including a possession of a weapon of mass destruction, and his recent travel to foreign countries. And so, the defendant is remanded to the custody of the Attorney General or to the AG's designated representative, and he must be afforded reasonable opportunity to meet with his attorney and deliver him for future proceedings, signed by the magistrate judge. And so he's not getting out. We see this is what the rifle looked like. So the fingerprint was apparently inside this electrical tape. It's hard to even fathom that this is functional. But all right, that's what we saw. We also saw that they were trying to get him out of custody by saying and introducing this exhibit. They said he's a crime fighter and he's a super citizen. Here's the story. Crime fighting pays, police organization honors the super citizen. Guess who the super citizen is? This guy right here. See that? Ryan Routh isn't a superhero. He's just another guy who lives in Greensboro, Fisher Park area with a family he tries to keep safe. But what he did do is he fought and chased a suspected rapist and later assisted police with their investigation, making him a super citizen, if not a superhero. And so he was awarded law enforcement Oscar by the Greensboro chapter of the Union of the Police Association. A statue shaped like an Academy Award rests on his mantle. He is the Citizen of the Year. He says, well, I just would have done the same thing as anybody would have done in a situation like that. When these types of incidents happen, most of what you do is just impulse. You're just reacting. I was happy to be at the right place at the right time. Interesting. So apparently wasn't good enough to get him out of custody. Just a simple man trying to fight crime on the streets and assassinate political opponents.